All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's about how to effectively plant churches in the Philippines, a country, by the way, with a really rich and complex culture.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got some incredible research material, actually, that reveals a really methodical approach to this work.
Right.
It emphasizes things like, thorough planning, a deep understanding of local culture, and empowering local communities.
Absolutely. And for listeners like yourselves, who I know value efficiency, this deep dive is all about cutting through the clutter, right, to those core principles.
Exactly.
And I think, there'll be some real aha moments along the way. You'll see how sophisticated this approach is.
Absolutely. The source material that we are using is actually a whole chapter dedicated to strategic research and community assessment.
Okay.
It makes it clear right from the beginning that this isn't some cookie-cutter operation.
No.
It's about understanding the nuances and tailoring the approach to each community. So our goal today is to unearth the most important elements and show you, the listeners, that it goes way beyond, just planting seeds.
Yeah.
It's about intentional, informed cultivation for a lasting impact.
I like that. Cultivation. It's a really good image, actually, because the chapter, I think it's right at the beginning, opens with this powerful analogy, describing the Philippines as a vast, intricate garden.
Cool.
What stands out to you about that?
Well, to me, it immediately changes how you see the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a blank slate, as you said. It's already a rich landscape, full of complexity and potential. And it suggests to me that successful church planting isn't about imposing something completely new, but about understanding what's already there.
Right.
And cultivating it in a smart way.
Exactly. And that cultivation, as they argue, begins with deep immersion.
Right.
Deep immersion in the local culture. And we're not just talking about language here. It's about understanding the traditions, the social structures, really the fabric of Filipino society. They even suggest, pretty subtly, but they suggest that if you ignore, say, the kinship systems that are so central in many Filipino communities, you could completely misinterpret basic social dynamics.
Oh, yeah.
And even with the best intentions, that could create friction.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like you can't truly engage with the community if you don't get how it works, right?
Right. From the inside out.
And the material stresses that this community assessment, it's way more than just casual observation.
Yeah.
It's a very active process.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how engaged they say you have to be.
Yeah.
You need to really listen to people's stories, identify the real influencers, the people who hold sway, and understand, the historical and social forces that have shaped their reality.
Yeah. And when they talk about key influencers, they're not just talking about people with formal titles, are they?
No, not at all.
It's more about identifying natural leaders, the respected elders, the influential educators, community organizers, even informal faith leaders, people whose opinions matter.
Yeah, people that the community trusts. And building on that, why is identifying these people so crucial?
Well, I think they're emphasizing gaining these invaluable insights, right?
Yeah.
It's like by building relationships with these influencers, the message of the gospel can be shared in a way that truly resonates.
Right.
And is respectful of existing beliefs.
They make a good point, actually, that it's about understanding the spiritual landscape, not just coming in and assuming, what people believe or need.
Yeah. It's about relevance, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand the existing spiritual framework.
Right.
If you're going to communicate new ideas effectively.
That makes sense. And the chapter really emphasizes that ultimately the goal is to grasp both the spiritual and practical needs of the community.
Yeah, it's not just about theology.
Yeah.
It's about addressing those real-life things, the hopes, the struggles, the things that really matter to people.
Yeah. I love that example they give, the rural barangay, where storytelling is so ingrained in the culture. What strikes you about that example?
Well, it's how they applied their research so intelligently.
Yeah.
They took the time to understand that storytelling was a core part of how that community communicated.
Right.
And so they developed discipleship materials in the local language, actually mirroring that tradition.
Yeah.
And to me, that shows deep respect, while also ensuring that the message is understood.
It's a beautiful blend of cultural sensitivity and strategic thinking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if we connect this understanding to the bigger picture, it leads to the next crucial point. equipping the messengers themselves.
The church planters, right?
Exactly. And they make this crucial point that it goes beyond just theological training.
Right, right.
What do you think that means?
Well, I think it means that while a strong theological foundation is absolutely essential,
Yeah.
it's not enough. They need more, a broader set of skills to navigate the complexities of cross-cultural engagement and community building.
They need a whole toolkit.
Yeah.
And the material actually outlines what those tools are.
Yeah.
Church leadership, community engagement strategies, and this is crucial. Strong cross-cultural communication.
Yeah, they have to be able to connect.
They're not just preaching, they're
Right.
connecting and leading in very diverse and often challenging environments.
And that leads to this idea of culturally relevant resources.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that so vital, do you think?
Well, think of it like this. If you're trying to get across a complex idea,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use language and examples your audience understands.
Mm.
It's the same principle. For the message of the gospel to really take root,
Mm.
the resources have to resonate deeply with the local culture.
Right.
So they really emphasize using local dialects,
Right.
familiar idioms, even drawing from indigenous narratives. It's not just about making it understandable.
Yeah.
It's about honoring the community's heritage.
It's like translating not just the words, but the meaning behind them.
Yes, the cultural understanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes this approach so powerful.
What I find really insightful is this idea of bridging the gap, taking those timeless truths and expressing them in a way that connects with today's culture.
Right. It's a dialogue, a conversation between the ancient and the modern.
And the source actually uses these words. It's a dialogue that's both respectful and transformative.
I like that. And the support for these church planters, it doesn't stop once they're in the field, does it?
No, not at all.
The material really pushes for ongoing support, a robust mentorship framework.
Yeah, it's not a solo mission.
No, it's a team effort.
And mentorship provides that safety net, that guidance,
Right.
encouragement, practical advice.
The source describes it as, well, essential guidance, encouragement to keep going, and practical advice based on real experience.
Yeah, and those mentors, they play a huge role in helping those church planters navigate all those challenges, from cultural nuances to, even logistical stuff.
The day-to-day reality of working in a new environment.
Right. It's about building resilience, but also encouraging innovation.
To be able to adapt to unexpected situations.
Exactly.
And this leads us to the concept of the holistic church planter.
Yes.
This person, they're not just a preacher, they're so much more.
Right.
What are some of those key roles that they highlight?
Well, they talk about them being visionary leaders,
Yeah.
inspiring and guiding the community.
Yeah.
Empathetic counselors,
Yeah.
offering support and understanding.
Right.
Skilled community organizers,
Yeah.
mobilizing people for positive change.
And even cultural bridge builders,
Yeah.
helping people from different backgrounds connect.
Exactly. It's a much broader role than we traditionally think of.
Yeah. The goal of their training is to create holistic change agents, people who can address a whole spectrum of needs.
Right. But it's not just about practical skills.
No.
The source also emphasizes that all this has to be rooted in a deep understanding of biblical truth.
Yeah, that's their foundation.
Why is that so important?
It's presented as the bedrock, the foundation for everything they do.
Yeah.
It's not just about knowing theology, it's about letting that understanding guide their every interaction,
Right.
every decision, every outreach effort. It provides clarity of purpose, a moral compass.
It gives them that direction.
Right, that guiding light.
And then they build on that foundation with church leadership skills.
Yeah, the practical side of leading a community.
Right. They mention things like discipleship, small group management.
And, crucially, conflict resolution.
Right. Why those specific skills?
Because they're essential for creating healthy and thriving communities.
Right.
Those skills help those church planters guide individuals.
Yeah.
Create supportive small group environments and navigate conflict in a constructive way.
Which is inevitable, right?
In any community, you're going to have disagreements.
Yeah.
But how you handle them makes all the difference.
And then there's this element of cultural intelligence, which they don't just say is beneficial.
Right.
They say it's a necessity.
They do.
What does that really mean, do you think?
It's more than just learning the language. It's about having deep sensitivity to local customs,
Right.
values, social cues.
Like reading the room.
Exactly. And combining that with this commitment to what they call contextualized evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
It's thoughtfully bridging those biblical teachings with the existing cultural narratives.
Yeah, finding those points of connection.
Right. And doing it in a way that's both meaningful and respectful.
And then they go even further and talk about sustainable development.
Yeah, this surprised me a little at first.
I know, it's not something you'd immediately think of.
No, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, explain the connection.
They argue that true transformation, lasting transformation, it goes beyond just the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
You have to address those practical needs.
Yeah, the economic, the social, the education.
They give examples like vocational training programs, microfinance initiatives, community health programs.
Right.
The idea is that the church can be a catalyst for positive change.
In every aspect of life.
Right, not just in people's spiritual lives.
And that brings us to resource development, specifically creating localized discipleship materials.
Yes, tailored to the specific community.
And they're very clear that those generic one-size-fits-all resources,
Yeah.
they're just not going to cut it.
No, they don't.
Why is that?
The Philippines has such incredible diversity linguistically and culturally.
Right.
What resonates in one community might not make any sense in another.
Yeah, the language, the imagery, the examples,
Yeah.
it all has to be relevant.
And if it's not, they say it can lead to disengagement
Right, people just tune out.
and the message gets lost.
So how do they suggest creating those culturally relevant materials?
It's a very intentional process.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just translating existing materials.
Right.
It's about incorporating culturally relevant illustrations, stories, narratives that reflect the lived reality of that specific community.
They even give examples like using sea metaphors in coastal communities.
Yeah, or weaving in local myths and traditions when working with indigenous groups.
It's about speaking their language, not just literally but figuratively.
Exactly.
And those localized materials, they're not just focused on abstract concepts.
No, they should address those real-life challenges.
Right, the things people are dealing with every day.
Economic difficulties, lack of education, social issues.
By addressing those practical needs, they empower people to grow in all areas of their lives.
And that's where technology comes in.
Right.
They talk about leveraging technology for resource dissemination.
Yeah, why is that important?
It's about reaching people efficiently and effectively, especially in today's digital world.
Yeah.
Using digital platforms, social media, mobile apps allows you to reach people quickly, even in remote areas.
Right, and to keep those materials updated.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up, can you summarize the two key pillars of this approach?
Absolutely. It comes down to two interconnected elements.
Sure.
First, developing that holistic church planter, someone who's grounded in theology, equipped with strong leadership skills, has deep cultural intelligence,
Right.
and a commitment to sustainable development.
That's quite a combination.
It is. And second, creating those localized, culturally resonant discipleship materials.
That truly speak to the community's heart.
Right.
Bringing it back to that garden analogy, it's not about just throwing seeds around,
No, it's about preparing the soil,
nurturing those seedlings.
cultivating that thriving ecosystem.
It's a thoughtful and strategic process.
And every part of it, from the research to the mentorship to the materials, is intentional.
It's all about creating lasting impact.
A more hopeful future for those communities.
This leads to a final thought for our listeners. Consider how these principles, the research, the cultural sensitivity, empowering local leaders, how might they apply in other areas of your life?
Yeah. Think about your work, your community involvement.
Where understanding a community is key.
These strategies, though they seem specific to church planting, they offer broader insights for effective engagement and positive change.
Food for thought. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.